He thought his father was a heartless drunk, a man who destroyed every good memory of his childhood. So when the phone rang and Daniel heard his dad was gone, he returned home only to say a final goodbye and walk away forever. But God had a different plan, because hidden beneath the dust of old memories was a journal his father left behind, a journal filled with fear, pain, and one unbelievable truth. His father wasn't a monster. He was a hero, a secret protector who risked his own life to keep his son alive. Now, with danger closing in and a loyal German shepherd refusing to leave his side, Daniel must discover whether forgiveness can save not just a memory, but his future. If you believe God still heals families, if you believe miracles can rise from the darkest places, then stay with this story. Do not scroll. And before we begin, please click subscribe, tap like, and comment Amen to help spread this message of faith, courage, and unconditional love. Thank you, and may God bless you for being here. White Pine. Montana lay low in a shallow valley beneath the Bitterroot Mountains, a place where the wind carved through the pine stands with a whistle that carried both loneliness and warning. Autumn refused to be gentle this year. Early snow clung stubbornly to rooftops, and the last of the yellow aspen leaves fluttered like torn paper above the tired houses. Thin needles of cold rain swept across the cracked sidewalks, making even the neon lights of the lone diner appear dull and fragile in the late afternoon gloom. It was the kind of weather that pressed people indoors and pressed memories into minds whether they wanted them or not. Daniel Miller guided his pickup down the narrow two-lane road with the controlled calm that the Marine Corps had drilled into him. 38 years old, standing 6'1", with shoulders shaped by years of carrying packs heavier than promises, Daniel looked like a man built to withstand storms. The structure of his face was markedly angular, a square jaw softened only by the faint stubble that shadowed it. A pale scar traced a clean line from the outer point of his right eyebrow toward his temple, a reminder of a training accident that had once taught him the value of vigilance. His gray eyes, cool as river stones, observed rather than reacted. Beside him, sitting upright in the passenger seat like a second conscience, was Rex. 5 years old, a German shepherd bred for stamina and intelligence. Rex wore a sable coat where the black saddle streaked like ink over a deep brown base. His ears, sharply pointed, never rested, responding to every gust of wind outside. The dog's posture conveyed readiness, his warm amber eyes fixed often on Daniel's face, as if monitoring the tension buried beneath Daniel's silence. 2 days earlier, a call had informed Daniel that his father, Thomas Miller, had died of a heart attack. No hospital rush, no goodbyes, just paperwork. Just the mechanical duties of a son estranged long enough that grief had been replaced by habit. Daniel had chosen cremation, quicker, cleaner. He told himself the ground would freeze soon, that burial would be impractical, but deep down he avoided the thought of watching soil fall onto the man who had once shouted him out of the house on a winter night, telling him to grow up and stop crying after his mother's funeral. As the truck turned onto Cottonwood Lane, Daniel felt his jaw tighten. The houses here looked the same as his memory, paint peeling like sunburnt skin, windows fogged with time, porches sagging under the weight of forgotten repairs. His father's house appeared at the end of the street, a one-story wood cabin that had once been painted a cheerful forest green. Now it stood as a faded echo of that color, like hope thinned until nearly transparent. Daniel parked. Neither he nor Rex moved for several breaths. The rain pattered against the windshield in scattered taps, punctuating the silence. "You ready?" Daniel asked, quietly, Rex answered with a soft whine, head tilting. It was enough. The yard looked recently trimmed, the porch swept, the windows wiped clean. For a house left alone for years, everything appeared disturbingly maintained. Daniel frowned. Strange. He unlocked the front door. The scent that greeted him was not must or dust. It smelled ordinary, too ordinary, as if someone had just stepped out for groceries and left everything in perfect order. The living room remained exactly as memory preserved it. The old brown couch with the sagging springs, the wooden coffee table with a dark ring stain from a bottle Thomas never bothered to use a coaster for. The framed photo of Daniel's mother still on the mantel, her soft eyes and warm smile frozen in a happier summer. Yet the mantel had no layer of dust, not even a film. His breath thickened in his throat. Rex walked ahead, nose low, tracing invisible lines across the floor. The dog's muscles tightened, tail straight and alert. Something unsettled him. Probably the neighbors checking in, Daniel muttered, but even he did not believe it. He moved down the hallway toward his childhood bedroom. Every creak of the floorboard beneath his boots stirred old frustrations. Nights of shouting, the crash of bottles, his father's angry footsteps. Daniel had enlisted in the Marines the moment he had been old enough. Escaping with a mixture of relief and guilt, he never confessed to anyone. Reaching his room, he paused. The door still bore the faint outline where, at age 12, he had taped a poster of his favorite baseball player. The poster was long gone, but the indentation remained. He turned the handle. The room looked like it had been waiting. The small oak desk, the twin bed, the quilt his mother had sewn when he turned 8, preserved without wear. Nothing was out of place. Nothing aged. The strangeness of that cut deeper than any messy neglect could have. Rex padded inside and circled the bed. His nose brushed the wooden floorboard along the edge of the mattress. He growled, low and cautious. Daniel knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" Rex pawed once, nudging the frame. A small thump sounded from below, something sliding just enough to reveal its presence. Daniel reached under the bed, and his fingers brushed against fabric. Smooth, worn leather. He pulled out a journal. Old, scratched. The initials TM pressed into the corner. A personal thing. A private thing. Something his father had never allowed him to see. Daniel sat on the bed, the mattress springs groaning under weight and history. He hesitated a moment before opening to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably his father's, bold strokes that betrayed a certain stubbornness, numbers and letters pressed with too much force. To my son, Daniel, if you ever find this, I need you to understand that I am sorry. His chest tightened. Years of bitterness surged, followed instantly by confusion. He read on. After your mother died, I failed. I let grief drown me and let anger raise you. Every night I told myself I would do better tomorrow, but tomorrow always came with another bottle. Rex rested his head on Daniel's knee, sensing the change in his breathing. Daniel flipped the page, part of him burning to know more, part of him wanting to toss the journal into the rain. He stood quickly, pacing the room. The journal trembled in his hand. The house, the memories, the rain, the silence, everything pressed inward. I should have stayed away, he whispered. Yet he was here, and something in this house waited to be found. Rex's ears snapped upright at a faint noise from outside. A branch? A footstep? Daniel could not tell. He moved toward the window and peered out into the dim yard. Shadows clung tightly to the trees. There was no one. Still, the unease lingered. Daniel sat again on the bed, staring at the journal like it was a lit fuse. He had planned to spend one night, sell the house, and leave this town forever. Now the past demanded more than a hurried goodbye. Rex nudged his hand, steady and loyal. Daniel nodded once, the decision forming without words. "One night," he said. "Just one night, and then we're gone." Outside, the wind scraped across the siding like fingernails. Inside, the house felt far too awake. Morning crept over White Pine with a dim and reluctant light, fighting its way through a heavy curtain of gray clouds. Cold air pooled inside the house, crawling over Daniel's skin as he sat on the edge of his old bed. The journal lay open in his hands, its cracked leather warm from his grip, as though the past itself resisted being forgotten. Rex, his 5-year-old German Shepherd companion, stretched across the floorboards nearby, muscles tensed despite his calm posture. His amber eyes followed every shift in Daniel's breathing. Daniel turned another page. The ink appeared darker here, stroked with urgency. Words from Thomas Miller, the man Daniel had spent a lifetime resenting, suddenly carried a weight that felt impossible to ignore. "Your mother was my light. When she died, the house fell dark. I lost the courage to be your father." Daniel blinked hard. That night returned to him in broken scenes. The flashing emergency lights on the ceiling, the neighbor's lavender-scented coat wrapped around his shaking shoulders, and his father standing frozen, refusing to shed a single tear. The silence afterward had grown teeth. He swallowed and kept reading. "I told myself the bottle was helping, but every drink chipped away at the promises I should have kept. I hurt you because I could not face the hurt inside me." Daniel's jaw clenched until it ached. Rex nudged his knee gently, sensing the storm behind his stillness. Before he could turn the next page, a faint thump echoed from the hallway. Rex sprang up, ears rigid, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Daniel rose carefully and stepped into the hall, scanning the shadows. Nothing moved. "Just the house settling," he muttered, though he did not believe it. He returned to the room, journal held tighter now. "I watched you grow strong without me. I watched you leave and prayed you would never look back. You survived in spite of me, not because of me." Daniel exhaled a shaky breath. The anger he had nurtured for decades wavered against this new truth. His father had not been cruel out of hatred. He had been cruel out of despair. A sudden knock startled both man and dog. Rex barked sharply and rushed toward the living room. Daniel followed, slipping the journal under his arm as he opened the door. On the porch stood Sarah Jenkins, his former neighbor and childhood friend. She was in her early 40s now, tall and slender, wrapped in a burgundy wool coat. Her long neck and narrow shoulders gave her a graceful but slightly fragile presence. Chestnut brown hair escaped from a loose bun, brushing her pale cheeks. Her hazel eyes, soft yet worn by life, held genuine concern. "Daniel," she said with a quiet steadiness, "I'm so sorry about your father." Her voice carried a comforting warmth, despite the bitterness of the wind. Daniel remembered she had lost her husband 5 years earlier in a mill accident, leaving her to raise a young daughter. Loss had carved her differently than it had carved Thomas. She had turned sorrow into empathy. "Thank you," Daniel replied, stepping aside. "Come in." Sarah entered cautiously, eyes scanning the immaculate living room. "You cleaned all this already?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "I thought maybe someone in the neighborhood came by." "No," she answered firmly. No one's been here. We all assumed the place was abandoned. Rex paced near the hallway again, sniffing intensely near the baseboards, his body wound tight like a loaded spring. Sarah lowered her voice. Strange cars would show up late at night these last few years. No lights. Engines off. Your father wouldn't let anyone help him. He was scared, I think. Or hiding something. Daniel's fingers brushed the edge of the journal, heartbeat thudding harder. He never spoke to me about any of that, he said. Sarah's eyes flickered toward the journal. Maybe he wanted you to discover it when the time was right. Silence swelled between them, thick with questions neither could answer. After a moment, she continued. We're holding a small service tomorrow at the church. Some people want to say goodbye. You're welcome to come. Daniel nodded once. I'll think about it. She hesitated, then gave Rex a gentle smile and stepped back onto the porch. The cold swallowed her presence as soon as she left. Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, letting the quiet return, heavier than before. The journal called to him again, not with forgiveness, with unfinished business. He opened to another page. I should have told you I loved you. I should have asked for help instead of a bottle. I am sorry, son. More sorry than these pages can say. Daniel shut the journal slowly, as if afraid to disturb the fragile repentance inside. Rex moved beside him, leaning his solid body into Daniel's leg in silent reassurance. Daniel looked around the spotless house. His father had cleaned nothing. Someone else had. Someone still might be watching. Whatever truth Thomas had been carrying, it had not died with him. And Daniel was no longer sure he could leave without uncovering it. Tonight, he would stay. Not for grief, for answers. Night settled early over White Pine, spreading a deep metallic blue darkness across the town as cold wind scraped through the pine needles outside. Inside the Miller house, a single lamp cast a dim pool of light over the coffee table where the journal lay open. Daniel sat forward, elbows on his knees, the pages reflecting in his gray eyes. Rex positioned himself near the door, upright, ears angled to every faint creak of the old house. Daniel turned the page and paused. The handwriting here grew tighter, more hurried, the loops sharper like fear had taken control of the pen. If anyone besides me finds this, it means they already know too much. They are always watching, always close. Daniel's pulse threaded faster. He swallowed and read on. It started with a shipment, a truck unloading crates behind the old sawmill. I thought it was just more scrap, until I saw the guns. He dragged a hand across his jaw. The sawmill had been closed for years. Shut down after an accident that nearly killed the shift supervisor, a stern and broad-chested man named Deputy Mark Hensley. Daniel remembered him from his teenage years. Thick black beard, neck like a tree trunk, and a voice that could quiet a fight before fists swung. Mark had become a deputy afterward, known for being iron-willed and fiercely protective of the community, though some whispered that the accident had changed him, leaving a temper that simmered beneath his uniform. Daniel continued reading. I reported what I saw. They told me to keep quiet, to keep drinking, to keep them thinking I was nothing. My punishment was to wear my failure like a mask. For you. Rex trotted closer, placing one paw gently against Daniel's leg, sensing the tension in his breath. Daniel felt heat rise in his chest. Years of resentment collided with a truth he had never imagined. His father had chosen to appear weak, broken, worthless, all to keep Daniel safe. A sharp knock at the door tore Daniel from the page. Rex barked, deep and protective. Daniel set the journal aside and moved toward the entryway, careful with every step. He opened the door only a crack. Deputy Mark Hensley stood on the porch. Snow clung to the shoulders of his thick sheriff's jacket. His broad figure filled the doorway as if trying to block whatever lurked behind him. His beard was speckled with early gray, and deep lines carved alongside his fierce brown eyes. He looked like a man carved out of the mountain, unyielding, weathered, and not easily moved. "Daniel," Mark greeted, voice low and edged with weariness. "Needed to check in. Heard you were back in town." Daniel opened the door slightly wider. Rex stood beside him, bristled fur, teeth barely visible beneath a warning growl. Mark eyed the dog with respect, stepping no closer. "My father just passed. I'm trying to get things handled," Daniel replied evenly. Mark nodded, jaw tightening. "Yeah, Thomas was complicated. We didn't always see eye to eye. He could be—" He stopped, searching for a word that did not sound cruel. "Hard to help." Daniel noticed how Mark's gaze flickered inside the house, like he was already assessing threats. "Did you two talk much lately?" Daniel asked. Mark hesitated. "Not really. He kept things to himself." There was something the deputy wasn't saying. Daniel could feel it press between them like the cold wind. "If you need anything, you let me know," Mark finally said. "This town's quieter now, but not always safe." Daniel held his stare. "I can take care of myself." A faint smirk cracked Mark's stern face. "Not doubting that. Marines don't forget how to fight." Then more somber. "Just don't dig deeper than you need to." Mark stepped off the porch. His boots crunched through the thin layer of snow as he headed for his cruiser. Only when the taillights disappeared did Daniel close the door. Rex whined once, uneasy. "I know," Daniel said, rubbing Rex's head. "He knows something." Back in the living room, Daniel opened the journal again. "They come and go, looking, waiting. If they believe I knew nothing, they will leave Daniel alone. I only fear they will never believe I was that helpless." Daniel leaned back, breath slow, mind racing. The spotless house, the strange cars Sarah mentioned, his father's role as a hidden informant. It all aligned into a shape he did not like. His father had lived in fear, alone, pretending to be drunk so the wolves would not strike. And now Daniel was sitting in the same den. He lifted the firearm he had carried since deployment and placed it on the table within reach. Shadows from the lamplight danced along its grip. Rex laid down protectively in front of the door, chin on his paws, but his eyes refused to close. Daniel stared at the journal, feeling the weight of every unsaid apology. His father had not been a failure. He had been a wall, a battered, lonely wall between Daniel and danger. Daniel closed the journal with a quiet finality. "I see you now, Dad," he whispered. But understanding came too late to say it to the man who needed to hear it. Wind hammered against the wooden siding of the house as night wrapped itself tightly around white pine. The temperature had dropped sharply, and each breath Daniel drew felt like ice settling into his lungs. He sat in the dim living room, the journal closed but still near, as if his father's voice waited inside, urging him forward. Rex rested by the window, ears lifted toward every whisper of movement outside. Daniel's gaze drifted to the framed photograph on the wall, his mother smiling warmly, his father's arm hesitant around her shoulders, and a younger version of himself with grass-stained jeans and a missing front tooth. A perfect moment, frozen before everything fell apart. The frame hung slightly crooked. It was the only thing in the house out of line. He stood and lifted it from the wall, expecting dust behind it, but the space was spotless. Fresh marks scratched the paint where the nail had been disturbed recently. Behind the photo, taped to the back of the frame, he found a small black USB drive. No label, no markings, just a quiet threat waiting to speak. Rex let out a low growl as if confirming the discovery's weight. Daniel pocketed the drive and swept his eyes around the room, every memory shifting into a new, darker shape. The maintained lawn, the clean rooms, the locked doors that still smelled of strangers' hands. The intrusions had not been for keepsakes. They were searching. His father had not left his secret carelessly. He had hidden what mattered most where danger would overlook it, inside sentiment, not logic. A floorboard popped near the hallway. Rex stiffened and stepped forward silently. Daniel followed, senses sharp, adrenaline steady like he had been trained. He listened. The house settled into silence again. He moved to the kitchen, every light switched off to avoid revealing his position. The dark felt like a partner rather than a threat. He cracked open a drawer, searching for anything his father might have left. Keys, notes, instructions. Instead, he found a small metal box with a single business card tucked beneath it. He flipped it over. Jack Connolly, U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. A phone number scribbled beneath the printed line. Jack Connolly. The name meant nothing to him. A knock startled him from the thought. One sharp rap at the back door. Not the front. Someone avoiding attention. Rex positioned himself between Daniel and the door, a low growl vibrating in his throat. Daniel did not open the door immediately. He peered through the narrow window. A man stood outside under the porch light, mid-50s, medium height, salt and pepper hair cut short, face lean with sharp cheekbones that suggested a life of long hours and little sleep. His posture held military discipline without the uniform, alert, balanced, ready. His navy jacket had a government badge clipped to the chest pocket. It was Jack Connolly. Daniel unlocked the door with caution. Rex remained in a protective stance, but his growl softened into a warning. "Mr. Miller?" the man asked, voice low, controlled. Daniel nodded once. "Your DEA." Jack stepped inside only after Daniel moved back, respecting boundaries. His eyes scanned the house, not with curiosity but practiced assessment. "Your father was working with us," Jack said. "He provided information on a trafficking ring operating out of the sawmill. Dangerous people. They believed he knew more than he did." Daniel's stomach knotted. "And now they think I have whatever they were looking for." Jack's jaw clenched, confirmation without words. "They came here tonight," Jack continued. "My team scared them off, but they will return. They do not leave loose ends." Daniel's hand drifted instinctively toward the pocket holding the USB. He did not reveal it. Not yet. Jack studied Daniel more closely, measuring him. "Your father admired you, you know. He told me you were the strongest person he had ever known." Daniel looked away, teeth set tight. Praise that arrived years too late still hurt. Jack sighed, a man tired of losing ground to shadows. "Thomas got involved because he wanted to protect you. Now the responsibility has shifted." Daniel's spine straightened. Purpose replaced confusion. He had been running from his past, but his father had been dying fighting for his future. Before he could speak, Rex lunged toward the window with a bark that shook the house. Headlights flared outside, briefly slicing through the dark. A vehicle engine revved and then cut off. Jack moved beside Daniel, hand hovering near his concealed firearm. His voice dropped to a grave whisper. They found you. The danger that had hunted Thomas had now arrived for his son. Daniel tightened his grip on Rex's collar, heart steady. This ends tonight, he said. Whether courage or stubbornness fueled him, he no longer cared. Whatever truth his father bled for, Daniel would finish. Headlights flashed once through the living room curtains, then vanished. Silence followed, dense and electric. Daniel tightened his grip on Rex's collar as the German shepherd growled low, hackles raised, ready for whatever stepped out of the dark. Jack Connolly stood beside Daniel with the tense readiness of a man who had lived half his life staring into danger. His lean face hardened, jaw clenching as he drew his firearm in a smooth, controlled motion. He did not look frightened. He looked prepared. A window shattered in the kitchen. Rex leapt first, a blur of muscle and instinct, Daniel right behind him. Two figures dressed in black winter coats poured into the room like shadows taking form. One was tall and wiry, with sharp cheekbones visible beneath a ski mask. He moved with the twitchy desperation of someone fueled by fear and drugs. The second man was heavier, thick arms covered in faded tattoos of skulls and barbed wire. His breath rasped loudly as he raised a handgun toward Daniel. "Drop it!" Jack shouted, stepping wide to draw attention away from Daniel. Gunfire erupted. Flashing sparks lit the walls like violent lightning. Daniel dove behind a counter, heart hammering steady rather than frantic. Combat training returned like muscle memory. He kicked a fallen chair to distract the wiry man, then lunged forward to knock the gun from his grip. They grappled, boots scraping across tiles, the man cursing through clenched teeth. Daniel overpowered him with a hard blow to the jaw, his face a mask of grit and focus. Rex launched himself at the second intruder, jaws clamping onto the man's wrist, forcing the gun to skid across the floor. The intruder screamed, trying to shake Rex off, but the dog held on with life-or-death force. Daniel rushed to help. Together they brought the man down. Jack moved swiftly to secure their weapons, his breath controlled despite the chaos. Outside, sirens wailed closer and closer, red and blue lights spilling across the snowy yard as police vehicles skidded into place. Deputy Mark Hensley burst through the front door, weapon raised. Behind him were two officers, one of them a young guy barely out of academy training, nerves sharp in his wide eyes. Mark swiftly took control, barking orders in his deep, commanding voice. He cuffed the first intruder, pressing the man's face into the floor with the weight of pent-up anger and betrayal. "You picked the wrong damn house," Mark growled. The danger finally broke apart under the flood of flashing lights and law enforcement shouts. Daniel leaned against the wall, breath heavy but steady. Rex stayed pressed into his side, licking a scratch on his foreleg but otherwise uninjured. Daniel knelt beside him, burying a hand in his thick fur. "You saved my life again," he whispered. Rex answered with a soft rumble, proud but tired. Jack holstered his firearm and nodded at Daniel, a rare flicker of respect warming the lines of his face. "Your father would be proud," he said. "You finished what he started." Daniel did not respond. Words felt too small. Hours later, after statements were given and bodies escorted away in handcuffs, the world quieted again. Snow fell lightly, blanketing the street in calm innocence. It felt unreal how violence could erupt one moment and vanish the next, leaving nothing but footprints and memory. The next afternoon, Daniel stood in the small cemetery at the edge of town. Gray stones leaned against time and wind, names worn soft by seasons that never asked permission to pass. Thomas Miller's grave was fresh, a simple marker of a complicated life. Daniel held the journal gently, tracing the engraved letters of his father's name. Rex sat beside him, tail curled around his paws, head bowed slightly, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. Daniel placed the journal on the cold stone. "Dad," he began, voice catching before it found its strength. "I spent my life believing you didn't care, that you chose the bottle over me. I never thought you were protecting me." Wind brushed through the pines, a soft rustling like breath. "I forgive you," Daniel said. "And thank you for loving me in the only way you knew how." A tear slipped down his cheek, the first one since childhood that he allowed to fall. He let it. Snowflakes landed on the journal's leather cover, melting slowly like the bitterness inside him. He rested his hand on Rex's head. The dog leaned into him, offering silent companionship. Daniel looked back toward town, toward the house that had once been nothing but sorrow. Now it was something new, a place where truth lived, where a broken family had finally spoken through written words, where healing waited. "We're staying," Daniel said quietly. "We'll fix up the house. We'll make it ours." Rex barked once, softly, as if agreeing. The storm that had consumed his family for years had finally passed. The cold still clung to Montana air, but something warm settled inside Daniel. Forgiveness, not weakness. Love, not regret. He walked away from the grave with shoulders no longer weighted by anger. The past had been faced. The future would be different, and a father's sacrifice would never be forgotten. In this quiet corner of Montana, a broken son found healing where he least expected it. In the truth his father left behind. Sometimes God works in ways we do not understand. Sometimes his miracles do not arrive in bright light or thunder, but in journal pages stained with regret, in a loyal dog who never gives up, and in the courage to forgive the people who once hurt us the most. Life will challenge us. People we love will fail. Hearts will break. Yet God reminds us that restoration is always possible. No matter how dark a home has been, he can still turn on the lights again. If you are carrying pain from family, if forgiveness feels impossible, remember this: the Lord sees every tear, and he can mend wounds the world believes cannot be healed. If this story touched your heart, please do not leave without helping its message reach others. Click share to spread hope. Comment Amen if you believe God can heal any broken family. Subscribe to join us in more stories of faith, courage, and unconditional love. May the Lord bless you, protect your family, and bring peace to every home watching right now. In Jesus' name, Amen.